Well, good evening and welcome to everybody for a Skew Fest and some catches, hopefully. I'll just say good evening to who is in at the present moment. Well, Brian at Hardwood Turning is in because he's got to be one of my earworms. I'll introduce you, not that he needs any introducing, neither does Pete, but I shall do that later. Good evening, Mike Evans, Steve Robbins, welcome. Michelle Ousby, good evening, Michelle. Haven't you got any washing up to do, Michelle? And William
Oh,
Kenny. Hello, William. How are you? And Mr. Bray, Terry Bray. No, it's Terry Bartlett. I can't even read.
Terry Bartlett.
Hi, Terry, and good evening to you. And I think I said hello to Steve. Well, hello, Steve, again. And Des Barnwell, good evening to you and welcome. Thank you for coming. And Ward Wilson. Hello, Ward, and good evening. Welcome. Hodgepodge, good evening, Hodgepodge, and welcome to you as well. Mark, the gentleman wood turner. I don't know why he says gentleman. He's no gentleman. Good evening, Mark, and welcome. And Susie. Hello, Susie. How are you? The Swiss wood turner. Welcome to you. Klondike Craftsman. Good evening and welcome. And also welcome to Ian Lee. And Todd. Hi, Todd. How are you? Welcome. Thanks for coming. Chris Pooley, my old mate Chris Pooley. Hello, Chris, and welcome. How are you? Long time no see or speak. I can understand he's been hiding from me. And Andy, the Valley Wood Turner, good evening and welcome to you. We've gone through Jenny Smith, good evening, Jenny, and welcome. Steve Heppenstall, good evening to you, Steve. Anthony Green, good evening to you, and welcome. And Sam Riddle, good evening to you, and welcome. It might be good afternoon or good morning where you are, I don't really know. Alan Passy, good evening. Mick Howe, good evening to you and welcome. Thanks for coming. That, I think, covers the people that are here at the moment. What I'm going to do now with this new technology is go bring the earworms in and introduce you to the one and only Mr. Pete Ravenscroft of Twisted Trees. And of
Evening all. I
course,
finished one beer, just waiting for mine to get sorted.
unfortunately, Brian was able to make it. So Brian of Hardwood Turning as well to make up the numbers.
I'm here too. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's very kind of you, because I know you'd be nearly as bored as me.
I know.
Um, only when you're here. Only when you're here.
Do I really have to be here?
No, indeed, I don't suppose you do. So I've said hello to everybody, I think.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, right. I think I've covered everybody. If I haven't, I'll rely on my earworms to say hello,
James Crawford.
make sure that I'm aware that people are here. So I'm going to put the earworms in the background and they will be keeping an eye on me, making sure I got the right cameras and everything else. So tonight we're going to be covering the skew. Now it's not a master class because I'm no master with the skew. It is it's going to be a demo on how I handle the skew. Maybe I do some things wrong. Maybe I don't. I don't know. It is my way of doing it. I will go through a little bit of, and it's not boring, it's important, a little bit of technical stuff, just going through what to look for if you are a beginner or new to turning. And I think this is really aimed at sort of in the beginning is the beginning turner and the sort of intermediary, if you like, just a few facts and figures, and then we'll get catch making. Hopefully not, but you never know if you do. Um, so that's what I intend to do. So what I'll start with is, I haven't forgotten anything, have I? No. What I'm going to start with is just basically what the skew is about. Now here we've got 4 skews. This is a standard skew, and it's a 1-inch standard skew. It's a cheapie, which I actually got just for this demo because I use, as you can see, skews with a radius. Basic characteristics of a skew chisel. This is the skew part, and that is normally around the 60 degrees. Nothing is set in stone. It's all a benchmark. And then you have the bevel angle. In my case, it's around the 24 degrees. Now, that is that bevel. If you look at it from that angle there, you take the two bevels into account, and that's called the included angle. And quite often it will be referred to as, let's say, in this case, a 50-degree included angle, which includes the two bevels. The important thing when you're sharpening is to make sure that the middle of the middle of the skew, the middle of this bit here, is in the middle. So in other words, you've got equal bevels either side. So that sharp pointy bit there is in the middle of the tool. You've got the width here, obviously, this is 1 inch. And on this particular one, it's just on 5mm, the bar. So this is why this sort of a chisel, which was about £23 English, is not very expensive. It's not as supportive or as robust as the better ones, let's put it that way. But as they always say, you only get what you pay for. And the other thing to note is that the edges come sharp. They don't come rolled over. So that's something you have to do, which I've done with this one. Just take the edge off so it doesn't catch on the tool rest, and it makes it easier to traverse across the rest. Sorry, going to say something, Bri?
It's okay. When you were pointing out there, you kind of had the thing out of shot a little bit.
It's back in shot now, yeah?
It is now, yep.
Okay. Yeah, basically I was saying here is the edges with a cheaper, years ago, this is how skews came. They came with a 90-degree square edge, which used to sometimes catch on the softer tool rests. So you just roll it over on a belt sander or something just to take that edge off. Now this tool here is again 1 inch. The bar stock is 8mm, and as you can see, the edges are already pre-rolled over, which makes it really nice and smooth across the tool rest. Now you notice that I've got a radius. It is my preferred way of using a skew. I'll go into a little bit more detail later on before we start turning. But
We
there
have
is
tried to correct Mike's bad habits, but he's gone back to it.
yeah, each to his own. And the characteristic that I like is from this area to about here, about 1/3 of the total edge is square. And then I start the radius from here. Several reasons for that. Number one, you can do a tenon, whereas otherwise, if you were using a complete radius, you'd have to skew your skew, if you like, and straighten up all the time. This way I can get a nice straight tenon. It's very good for going in for doing slicing cuts on end grain, as I'll show you, to clean up an end grain face. So that's why that piece is straight. And the 3/4 and the 1/2 inch have the same characteristic. Not so important with the small one, because I basically only use this on finials and smaller stuff. So that is the
I just add a little bit on the rolled edge.
yeah.
When you're rolling a bead with a skew, if you've got the square style one, you're coming off of the corner, dropping onto a flat, and then lifting back up onto the other corner. So when you're rolling a bead, it's much easier to have that rolled edge on it.
Correct. That is correct.
And
So thanks for that, Pete. So
right, just before we
Yep.
go on, before you go on there, Matthew Alden's asking a question. He's asking, is it more difficult to sharpen a skew with a radius? Mike will cover that in a minute or two, guys.
no, it's not. And by the way, I didn't say at the beginning, please, everybody in the chat, if you have any questions, even if I'm turning or getting a catch or swearing or whatever, just put it in the chat. The guys will interrupt me at the time, and let's make the answers to your questions in real time, if you like. So there's no waiting. You'll get your answer straight away, and if possible, I can demonstrate the answer to you. Okay, so that's the basic characteristics of a skew. Like with any wood turning tool, and I'm preaching to the converted here with the more experienced turners, you must always keep all your tools, especially the skew, as sharp as you possibly can all the time. So I will go first of all to the grinder. So luckily for you, I shall be now going out of shot. And this is a close-up of the grinder. I use CBM wheels at the moment, and the table is set at around the 20. It's not an exacting science. Now, I wouldn't be actually sharpening this way. I would get my hand in the way like this, but I'm going to do an underhand for the other bevel. So okay, so literally to touch the edge up, which is all you need to do. You're not really sharpening, you're just refreshing the edge. With the standard skew like this, I've got some marks here, just a guide. It's not, I better put my glasses on. Excuse me, I knew there was something wrong.
Good
The
plan.
whole world became blurred all of a sudden.
I've got a question from Philip J, who says,
Yeah.
does the bevel length matter?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Does the bevel length matter?
Yes, it does, and it does to a point. I'll go through that in a second, if I may.
Yep.
We'll just get the sharpening out the way. I can turn this off, and then we can have a chat again. So, as I said, I've got this at approximately 25 degrees. I'll go through the angles of the bevel in a second, and all you do is bring it up lightly to the wheel. Now, I don't do this on this one on a straight grind, because you tend to go off your, it will find its own area. I'm now on there, and I just press it against, and you see there a perfect facet. This is where I would normally move in the way of the camera. And again, with the other side, the same thing. You just put downward pressure onto your table, bring it up to the wheel very lightly. It'll find its position, and you've pressed it. And again, you've got a perfect bevel there. So that's the standard skew sorted. Now, with the radius skew, what you do, as I explained, have a straight part for about a third of the length of the bevel. You again bring it up to the wheel, touch it, and literally keep pressure, not too much, on the wheel. And you've got your, now I've missed a bit there. Now that, the reason I did that was on purpose, because when you actually get this straight bed, I like to do that. And then you don't get a bit of a step there, because you're blending in. And for the other side, same thing. Start here, work there if you wish, but always go back from the toe to the heel. And that's perfect there. This one isn't, because I'm doing it the wrong way, but never mind. We'll just do it again. And there's a perfect bevel there. Now, to obtain that bevel, the radius, I'm not going to do it with a straight skew, obviously, but literally all you do, you will put your, if you want to turn this into a radius, I tell you what, look, we'll do a little bit just to show you how easy it is. You put it up there, and all you do, okay, is move it. You have to be careful. You can see it's starting to blue there, because obviously, so you can see possibly here it's just starting to obtain the radius. I won't do the other side, I'll just do this side, not completely.
Ward is asking if you can use the Wolverine system to get that curve.
Yes.
I think you've demonstrated that you don't need it.
No. And you can see it started to appear there, and you're just taking metal away from here to there, and you get your radius. And believe me, it doesn't take long. When you're doing it the way I'm trying to do it, it takes a bit longer. Let's put myself on there. Oh, you're going to have to bear with me for 1 second, but I remove my tool thing. I'm not bothered about the bit of wood for now. And I just want to go onto there a minute, and we'll zoom out.
Just to add to that, with a straight skew, which is the way they should all be,
Yeah.
when you've got your skew angle correct, when you go to just touch up the edge, the key thing is that the front of the edge needs to be at 90 degrees across your sharpening system, whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Mike's using guidelines there, and that's a good idea. But
just bring the lads in
haven't got the guidelines. Just as long as it's straight across, you're good.
Yeah. that really, the important thing, not so much with the Pro Edge, because that's all set up for you. If you have a grinding system and you're using the Wolverine like I am, one of the most important things, obviously, is setup. When you initially put your grinder together with the Wolverine system, that the center of the basket is in the center of the wheel, and everything is at right angles to each other, so there's no deviance. So when when your table is up against the wheel, hang on a minute, this is just impromptu, but we'll do it if we can. No, it won't show it there, will it? No, it won't show it. Never mind. What I was going to say is that when you look down on your platform, there should be an equal distance between the wheel and the platform for the complete width of the wheel. Yeah. So if you can imagine, that's the table. It's no good having it on a skew. Literally, it must be at 90 degrees to the wheel. Otherwise, you're going to get uneven bevels, especially when you're sharpening a gouge. One side will have a deeper bevel than the other, because it is not, your basket won't be square to the wheel, if you follow what I mean. I've got this in hand. You don't have to go to the grind every time. You can refresh the edge by means of, this happens to be a James Barry diamond card. I've had them for years. A diamond card is preferred, and if you want to refresh the edge,
you put yourself back on full screen so they can see that better.
Oh yeah, okay. And apologies for the technology side, because it's only the second time I've used StreamYard, you see, and the buttons are different. Okay, so
he's confused.
I'm easily confused as well. So you just get the bevel. I'm using 180 grit here. You can use a finer grit if you wish, remembering if you do a finer edge, it won't last as long. And you literally put it on the back bevel there, onto the edge, and I like keeping contact with it, and that way you don't roll the edge over. And you do the same on the other side. I'm doing well here because I've got the glasses on top of my head.
So I was asking what grits your CBM wheels are.
80 and 180. The 80 I use, I could have gone for 240. And you've got what you've got there. Sorry, I'll come back to you now in a second. What you've got there basically is a very small micro bevel, but you've got a very keen, sharp edge. So while you're using a skew, instead of if you don't want to go back to the grinder, you can just refresh it with a diamond hone of some description. Yeah, 80 grit and 180. You can get obviously finer grits, 240s and that, but I think for turning 180 is fine. I have got a leather strop, which I made many years ago, and sometimes, I don't do it very often, I'll run the skews across the leather strop as well, just to get a scary sharp edge, but it doesn't last long. That's ideal for bench chisels where you haven't got the forces that are exerted on turning from a lathe. I think that covers the basics, unless there are any questions. Nothing, as I say, is set in stone. These are all, the angle, the bevel angle there can vary from 15 degrees with an included angle of 30 degrees, obviously, from 15 degrees right up to sort of 50, 60, depending what you're doing. A good mean, a sort of a good average for both hardwoods and softwoods is around the 40, 45 degrees. So I'm told. I use, well, basically 48 degrees, I suppose, because it's just under 25 degrees. And that's what I'm happy with. And it seems to cover all the woods. It must be said that the more acute your angle, now I know Pete uses 15 degrees,
yeah.
And I don't know what his experience is with hardwoods, because apparently you need a more obtuse angle to handle hardwoods, because with a finer one, you could with a like
the finer one, you've got a sharper edge, so it will blunt quicker.
Yeah, and you then prone to a bit of chip out if it's hardwood. Yeah. So good, you know.
You've forgotten to mention about bevel length.
Yeah, the bevel length. Now the bevel length, again, it's not a standard. It is a benchmark, if you like, to work from either way. Is approximately, I always forget what the geometry is. About they say about 1.5. The length of the bevel here, 1.5 times the width of the stock. But again, that is an approximation. It so happens, I mean, I just use this bevel. I've used it for a long time and it suits me fine, which is, let's say, for the sake of argument, it's 25 degrees. It's a bit less than that. And it does work out approximately 1.5 times the width. If I measure the bevel length, it's about 1.5 times the width of the stock. So that again is a general guide to get you started. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I started doing things like this, I used to get the measurement, go into the sort of couple of thou, which really and truly is not necessary, in my opinion. But if you want to get it exact, then that's the way to do it. But to give you some ideas, I say 1.5 times the bevel from edge to the heel of the width of the bar stock.
And JP Woodbrook has joined us, and he's opened with, what's the best angle to manscape that well-groomed beard, Mr. Walt?
I actually use one of Simon Hook's negative rate scrapers, because I don't have to be too, it's very forgiving, very forgiving.
Desperate Dan now.
Yeah. So that's that. While we're talking, I'll get a bit of wood on.
We've a whole lot of other people joined us. I'll just read them out to you, Mark. We've got Colin Lizard, Lewis the Klondike Craftsman, Paul Houghton.
Good evening, Lewis.
Andy.
Evening, Andy.
Andy, the woodwork learner, that is. Roy the boy. Philip J.
Hi, Roy. Phil.
Matthew is in. Joe Garofalo.
Good evening, Joe.
Wurzel, who is Alex the wood butcher.
Good evening and welcome.
The Dutch Tanner's in.
Good evening to you.
Malcolm Douglas.
Good evening, Malcolm.
Sherry Jat.
Good
Brian
evening,
Greenhaven's Creations. And Jamie's JP is just in. And Mark
Good
Edwards
evening, Jamie,
just joined.
and hi. I'm Mark Edwards. Good evening to you as well.
And we've got 92 people watching currently.
Well, there's 92 people that could be doing something far more interesting, but thank you for coming. I really, really do appreciate it. I'm sure you're here to see the catches, which we might well get a few. Go on, Pete, say your party piece about the catches. Go on.
Well, when you buy a new skew, if you buy a cheap one, it will come with about 1,000 catches built in. If you pay a decent amount of money for a good skew, they'll take some of those out. So you have about 500. But there's still 500 catches built in at the factory. And you've got to use all of them before the skew will work properly for you.
And if you believe that, ladies and gentlemen, you will believe anything.
Gullible is all I can say.
Yes, indeed.
Karsten Pedersen has just joined us. Hi, Karsten.
Good evening, Karsten, and welcome. I'm just going to do a little bit of camera alteration, possibly.
Yeah, underline that little crack. There is the true fact that the skew is one of those tools that you do need to practice.
I was just going to say, it is so important. You can see my little feet. Look, dancing, happy feet. That's okay.
Yeah. You can put us in the background again,
bright, is it? Because I do want to. Pardon?
Back in the background
again.
Yeah, in a minute. Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. No, there's no questions.
We've got David Walsh has joined us from.
Evening, David, and welcome.
Texas.
Welcome. Are we okay here? Yeah, we're okay. Okay, so I'll put the guys back in the background again, and they'll keep an eye on what I'm doing. Okay, we've got a bit of, I don't know what it is. It's a sort of a sapele type wood, sort of hardish wood. It's not rock hard, but anyway, the skew can be used, and as I say, I might be saying a lot of things that people already know. And don't forget, any questions, please ask them straight away. Tool rest height. A lot of people ask me what height a tool rest should be for turning. the tool rest is not the important thing. The height of the tool rest isn't important. It's the height that your tool rest is to allow you to cut normally on or just above center. So the different size of tool, your turning style, all dictates to where that tool rest is going to be. And you will see even the most experienced professional turners doing little micro adjustments to their, from cut to cut or during a few cuts. So don't be afraid to stop the lathe and change the height of your rest if it isn't exactly where you want it, because that's what it's for. It's there to be adjusted.
With the skew,
Now,
it tends to be a bit higher than you would
yes,
with any other tool.
If you're doing a plate, I'll go through the cuts. The 3 cuts I'm going to go through, which I call the basic cuts, and then I'm sure the lads will stick some more on as well. It's the planing cut, where you're going left to right or right to left, whatever, to bring something down to round or to get a round piece with a nice finish. Okay, so you've got the planing cut, you've got a peeling cut, which is where you present it to the work like so, lift the handle and start to peel. Now that is one way of getting a piece to round. Of course you could use the spindle roughing gouge, and there's nothing wrong with doing that at all. What I'm here tonight to show you is what the skew is capable of. Doesn't mean to say you have to use it for every operation, but if you're doing a finial, for example, on a smaller piece than this, it's handy just to have the one tool to do 99% of the jobs. You could even do a shallow cove with the skew, but obviously not so easy with that one as it is with that one, because you don't need to get rid of too much wood to allow you access to get that cove done. So roughing down, as I say, there are 3 cuts I'll show you to begin with. That's the planing cut, the peeling cut, and the slicing cut to clean up that end grain. Okay, so we want to turn to round. Now the same thing applies to a skew or to any tool that you're using. The quicker you feel happy turning at, it's going to be a better experience. You've got a piece of wood like this now. I'm doing 700 RPM. Okay, it's bump, 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 bump. It's very laboured and bumpy. Now, if I turn a piece like this, I would normally turn around 2000 RPM. Listen to the difference. It's quick, 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 quick. So you can either go, and again, it's exactly the same as a spindle gouge or any roughing gouge, anything like that. The ABC, anchor, bevel, cut. So you anchor. Okay, now I like to have my rest for this operation, which will a little bit higher. Okay.
Mark has pointed out you've forgotten the V-cut.
Oh yeah, what I said is the 3 basic cuts. Then we'll go through V-cuts, combs, beads, all of it. I've just got to turn my headphones up a bit. Sorry about this, guys. Can you say something, Pete?
Nope.
That's better. That's better. That's great. Okay. So I'm going to start bringing this down to round with a planing cut. So if I actually turn it right down to what I was doing.
Art Woodcraft has joined us, and he obviously knows you. I'm not sure who Art Woodcraft is. He says 6 years turning, and I reckon I've braved the skew about 3 times.
All right.
This should be educational.
Yes. Okay.
And he says, it's been a while since I've had time to tune into Mr. Walt. Still one handsome chappy.
Well, welcome.
So he's obviously a blind wood turner.
Yes,
yeah, obviously a blind wood turner, yeah.
So I've got to ignore that and carry on. Carry on regardless. So anchor, bevel, cut. Now we're going very slow at the moment. Now I've engaged the cut. Now this is not a nice experience. Okay, and it's not a very effective experience. I'm still getting a shaving, or a chip I should say, because we're doing, one thing I forgot to say, the cutting area is just here. If I can get a pencil, turn the lathe off. Your cutting area ideally is in this area, from there to there. Okay, within, not necessarily that size, but within that area. You want to keep away from there. That is not so important as keeping away from there. and I might actually show you what I mean by that. Okay, now you can see here, it's not a bad finish actually, but we're only doing 640 revs. Okay, so we're not going to carry on like that. I'm going to turn it up to what I normally would turn this sort of a size at, which is sort of just on the 2000 RPM, just over 2000 RPM. Now you listen to the difference of this. Same thing applies, obviously. Anchor, bevel, and lift the handle into the cut and work from the headstock, keeping floating the bevel, not pushing the bevel hard, just using the bevel as a guide. So all I'm doing is nice and easy, engaging the cut and going through, and that bit there is almost done. And the reason I'm not going to do it all is I want to use the other cut I use, or the other cut that can be used. So we're done here, that bit's nice. So you just keep doing that. You can do it the other way as well if you wish. You can go the other way, this way. I'll do it on the end. Same thing applies, anchor, bevel, lift the handle, and into the work. I'm doing it, only doing this bit because I want to use the rest, use the other cut for the rest of this roughing down to round. So we got that bit round there, no problem. This is going nice shape there actually. I hope you noticed that. It was my artistic flair coming in, Mr. Roosby. So the other way of getting the corners off is to do a peeling cut. Now with peeling cut, I'll start on the smooth bit here, is exactly the same. You put the tool, anchor, bevel, and then you lift into the cut. Lift into the cut. And then you push slightly forward. I find this method, now you can see why I've got that straight bit there. Okay, now if I was to use a standard skew, okay, the peeling cut would be a little bit more risky because I would, to get that up, I'd be engaging the whole 1 inch of the edge, which is just inviting a catch. So if I was using this and using a peeling cut, as opposed to doing, to do a peeling cut as opposed to doing a planing cut, I would do it, I'd have to have it on a skew like this. Here we go. Same principle, but if I did that, you can see what's going to happen. So I'd have to offset it a bit and go in, still effective, but as you can see, I've got a taper.
Mike, can we have a tailstock camera?
Yep.
ARC Woodcraft is asking if you can show the angle of skew from the tool rest to the flat.
Yeah. Right. You mean how I'm holding it as I'm approaching?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Hang on. Let's see. Maybe that one would be better, would it? Yeah.
Nope.
Maybe. No.
No, I think the other one.
I think he wants to know the angle, how you're holding it on the tool rest.
Ah, how about that one?
So the
No.
The angle, no, it's the
Tailstock.
tailstock is the best view.
That one there.
That's the
There,
one.
yeah.
Okay. Let's take this light off.
We can then see the
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay.
interaction of the three parts.
Okay. So what I'm doing here, I've got my, hang on, I can put the overhead on as well, surely. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. How's that? Is that okay?
No.
You can see that, you can see this.
No, other one.
That's just the overhead.
No, we've got it in the top corner, but it's got the StreamYard logo over it and it's too small.
There you
Give
go.
it a tailstock, Mike.
Okay, I'll listen to my earworms.
That's the one.
Unfortunately. Okay. So what I'm doing here, still using the standard skew, I want a peeling cut to get this to round. So what I'm doing, I'm placing it there and I'm literally lifting the handle. I'm there. Let's go here. A bevel, and I'm lifting the handle into the cut. Very similar to a parting cut with a parting tool. I'm not trying to take too much, but you can see the problem I've got, which I can't show you on this camera, is I can't go properly because I'm going to engage the whole piece. At the end of a piece of wood, it's okay because you can choose how much you want to peel off. So if you want to, let's say, do a tenon, let's say this was going to be a tenon, you can do that, and then you can get a nice, nice square shoulder by doing a peeling cut. But I'll do a peeling cut properly in a minute. Come down there.
You do a planing cut as well from that view.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the ways. I'm going to go back to my preferred skew, and then what I would do if this, I would normally use the peeling cut for the length of the blank because I feel confident doing that. And then you move very slightly, move the tool to your right so that you're not engaging the straight part, and then literally you go across the blank to get it to round completely. That's basically a scraping cut. Okay, so should have worn the smock, shouldn't I? Okay, so we're not looking here for, there's a little flat there, but we're not going to worry about that. We're not looking here for finish at this stage. We're purely looking for the roughing down. So I reiterate, you don't have to use the skew chisel to rough a piece of wood, but it's more than capable of doing it with several ways. Now, the other thing is, this is only about 1.5 inches, 2 inches maybe, or whatever. If you've got a big piece on there, then in my opinion, the tool rest has to raise a bit more. Otherwise, if you imagine that this was a bigger blank, okay, in relation to where the tool rest is now, it would be there, if you see what I mean. So you've got a big bulk of wood there. So I would personally, I change the tool rest to the size of blank that I'm working on as well. Now, a planing cut is basically a cut along the piece to get a nice finish. Okay.
Can I interrupt you a minute, Mike?
Yeah.
Nigel Lauren's asking, he says he's got a Colwyn Way medium-sized skew. When he does a V cut, especially the second cut into it, he often gets a spiral catch. What's he doing wrong?
Right. I haven't got this Colwyn Way. I know that Pete has got one, so I'll put you on. So Pete will explain that and give you the answer.
Well, there's two probable reasons. One is you're trying to take too much with the second cut, so your skew is getting bound between the waist and the stock. But the most likely is that your angle's wrong. You kind of need to be a bit more upright. And remember, the bevel of the skew is going to give you the V. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to cut in at an angle. You need to cut in completely upright and let the bevel do the work.
And that is true for any skew, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't matter which skew. The Colwyn Way is just another skew. The only thing I find with the Colwyn Way is it's quite a thin skew, so it kind of reverbs a little bit. So it's a little bit more delicate than some of the heavier skews.
And even more important, as I was saying before, is you need your tool rest to be in point of contact underneath where you're actually taking a shaving. Yeah. It's no good being over here. I can show you that on the overhead. So I'll just pop to the overhead, go to me only. Ugh. So what you want to do ideally, I'll just get a Sharpie, get a green Sharpie. This is what this sort of a live is all about. Ask as many questions as you want. Let's get back to my, okay, let's say, okay, that I'm taking a cut there. Does the camera show that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, with my angle of attack there, okay, I need to have not a very straight line. My contact with the rest needs to be directly under that cut or as near as I can get it. And the reason for that is that it gives it stability. And going back to what Pete said with the standard sort of sharp cornered skew, that is on a little pivot. So you're going to be having a bit of a jolt, if you like. So that is sort of where you want Now, I'm cutting quite low on there on purpose. So what I'd have to do is move to there. Now, I'm cutting quite a bit lower than there, but I'm giving support. Let's put the light on again, see what I'm doing. I'm giving support to where I'm cutting, okay? Now, if I want to be cutting there, then my pivot point on the rest must be as near as I can get it directly underneath the point of the cut. Now, you can hear that resonance. No, that resonance has gone, isn't it? That's because I'm in the right place.
Mark Edwards was asking about sharpening. Mark, if you go back to the beginning when Mark's finished, we did a section on sharpening there.
But that is a planing cut. We'll do it with the standard skew. God help me. No, if I go too quick, put too much pressure on, look what's happening. It's really, you've got to let the wood come down onto the edge and make sure we do one nice smooth one, hopefully. This is horrible wood actually, but that's no excuse.
On the subject of tool rest height, I had to give this some thought the other week because I had to explain it. If you get your lathe turned off, tool rest where you think it should be, grab hold of the tool you're going to use, put it as if you're going to cut, i.e. get the bevel in and lift it so that it's just into the cut, and then feel your shoulders. At that point, when you start that cut, your shoulders need to be straight and level and completely relaxed.
Yeah.
And then you've got your tool rest right because you've then got movement because your shoulders are not strained.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. I know this is about a skew, but it's like if this is a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, all right. Now, when I have that horizontal, it is a good, don't know, 1/4 inch maybe above center. Now I can compensate for that. That's not a problem. It's not where I want to be, but I can pick up the cut. And if you see my body from the tailstock end, let's go really silly, and the same applies to the skew. If I go too high, okay, where the tool rest is above center, okay, and I want to do that again, see how high I have to go to engage the cut. And then I've got bevel contact. If I want to roll down here, I'm really uncomfortable because I have to lift the tool so high. Look, it's almost like a scraper position. So obviously that's too high. So I would bring it down to a level where I am literally hardly moving and getting the same result. Now I know that was exaggerated, but the point I'm trying to make is that the tool rest height, as Pete says, it's where you are most comfortable and where you will get a good cut. And if you get it wrong to begin with, especially if you're on your own, stop the lathe, have a look, think what you're doing wrong, what could I do to improve this, and experiment. And it's practice, practice, practice. I don't get enough practice, period, but I certainly don't get enough practice on the skew. I really don't. Some days I go out and I'll practice for half an hour and doing pretty well. And it's different in the demo situation as well, because I've got to, making sure I don't forget anything and so on and so forth. No excuse, but that's a fact. So if there are any other questions regarding presentation, I can, if need be, alter the cameras possibly to give you a better idea. But the basic theory behind a skew, or the same as a gouge, is that you anchor it onto the tool rest, you get your bevel contact. As you get more experience, you can hardly perceive the fact that the turner is actually establishing bevel contact, because it's a natural thing to do. You know when you're going to get your cut. But for the intermediary turner, well, not even intermediary, beginner and the newer turner, that is not so evident. And that only comes with practice and with muscle memory. And you just have a feel for when you're going to get the cut. But if you follow those rules of anchor, bevel, cut, and actually Steve Jones adds another one in, A, B, C, D, anchor, bevel, cut, direction, the way you're going, which is true. Or in my case, it's anchor, bevel, cut, and another C on it. It's CC, cut, catch. But yeah, that's so the basic rules apply. I will say the skew is harder to learn. It needs more practice. If you're willing to put the time in and experiment, and the good thing about it, you can experiment on anything. If you get a bit of pine, people say, oh, pine's terrible. Pine, it turns lovely. If you've got a nice sharp tool, a good tool presentation, you'll get a lovely smooth surface. And pine can be quite pretty, actually.
Yeah, but it always puts a knot right in the middle of that
yes, you always get that. Yeah, you do. That's true. That's true.
Gav has joined us as well. Good evening, Gav.
Oh, Gav said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening, Gav, and welcome. How are you? Right. Okay. So that is the planing cut and the peeling cut. Now, if you want to see them again quickly, you want to see a peeling cut again.
Hang on. ARC Woodcraft, how are you maintaining the tipped angle of the skew all the way along the cut? Are your fingers supporting the heel? Are you holding the angle with your right hand, perhaps?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I tend, if I'm using hang on, let's go to the overhead. If I'll turn this light off so it's not blinding you. Okay, if I'm using, you've noticed I got a round toolbar here. Now for skew work, personally, I prefer a round toolbar. Don't ask me why. I can use the other ones, but this is my preference. It's just me personally. You can use the heel of your hand. It's exactly the same as if you're using a spindle roughing gouge. If you want to do a cut that's going to traverse the tool rest along the length of the blank, however long or short it is, and you want an even cut, then you have to have some form of register. You can either use your index finger, like so, and then your downward pressure would come with your thumb, and you would go along like so. But you don't use your hands, you lock in everything, and this is why I suppose I should go to the tail stock. You lock everything in. I've got a nice long handle on mine by design that goes into my hip. I'm going from right to left in this instance. So I get comfortable here at the end of the cut so I don't fall off it, and I lean into the cut. And I use either my index finger here to guide the tool to make sure, bearing in mind I'm locked in everywhere, my hand's got to touch there. So that's why I don't always use that. If you use an overhand, you can either use your heel is against the tool rest, put your fingers over, don't do any of this. All is there is downward pressure onto the tool rest through the tool by your hand. You don't maneuver with this hand. This is only there to give support, to put pressure through the tool onto the tool rest. That's why if you do it this way, you could do it that way. This is quite comfortable for me because that part of my finger, any way you want, just to get that register, and you can go from here, pick up the cut, and all I'm doing is using that part of my index finger to keep it parallel. I'm going to run out of knuckle in a minute, so I'll stop. Or will I make it? No, I won't. Okay, no hero moves. But basically, you can use that. And if you use your overhand, same with the, we're not doing the spindle roughing gouge. I was saying it is the same as the spindle roughing gouge in that respect. But if you use your skew, it's the same thing. Once you've got everything sorted, on a tool rest like this, I would normally go overhand. So I'm using, let's go overhead again. What I'm doing here, I would be using that part of my finger, which is in contact there, and the heel. So there. Okay. So again, I've got to run out here, so that's why I'd have to do it that way.
Actually, that view you had there is quite useful for explaining something.
Well, this one or the
Put
other
your
one?
hand over as you were. Right, now if you look, Mike is not gripping that tool. He's putting weight on the top.
The
And I
weight's
find
coming
this all
from
the
here.
time when I'm doing YouTube. My fingers are wrapped around the tool, but they're not touching on the back
No.
side of the tool. I'm not
No.
pulling the tool with that hand. It's just wrapped to keep me out of the way.
Yeah.
So you're putting weight down onto the tool rest. You're not pulling the tool along.
That's right. The same must be said for any tool you use. Your
Yep.
left hand is not there to guide, it's there to provide downward pressure through the tool onto the tool rest to give the tool rest a pivot point, if you like, a fulcrum. If you see somebody like Mr. Batty, not Alan, Stuart,
Yeah.
when he is, or any of the sort of world-renowned turners, him and his 40-40 grind, when he holds his bowl gouge, he holds it like that. Whoop, there we go, like that. Because he's not doing any of this. It's just there. If you use the overhand, like so, it's only sort of where you're contacting with your fingers is just putting pressure. You can actually get away. It's a bit uncomfortable, but if you just put your hand like that, flat, then you can't really dictate where it's going. It's all from your hips and your right shoulder, right hand, whatever, when you're twisting. Nothing. This is just to get weight onto the tool
pretty
rest.
much
To give
all
you
the turners on
stability.
YouTube, they've got their hand wrapped around the tool.
Yes.
But there is a gap between the fingers and the edge of the tool. They are just putting downward pressure.
Yeah, they're not doing that. All they're doing is that. And this thing, the thumb is a typical thing here. When you shouldn't have your thumb up and so on. So it's rubbish. As long, I like to hold things like that because then nothing is influencing. It's just purely movement that's influencing where it's going. Now, bearing in mind, lads and lasses, this is theory. It doesn't always work for me, obviously. But this is what I always say. If you have experience, then you know what you've done wrong, or you know what you're doing wrong, and you know how to rectify it, or what you need to do to rectify it. The problem with the newer turner and the beginner is they don't know what they need to do to get it right unless they're shown. This is why I always advocate if you can have a one-on-one personal lesson or 5 to begin with, all these things will be ironed out before you really start turning properly. But what tends to happen, and it's the same with any hobby, any pastime, any craft, in my experience, you want to get out there and do it. Well, I used to play golf. I couldn't be bothered to have lessons. That's why I never got any better than about 14. And, I played off 14 after playing golf for years because I never had a lesson. When I had time to play golf, I wanted to play golf. I didn't want to sit there, and the same with turning. I wanted to get on there, turn wood. I didn't want to be shown. And it's the biggest mistake I ever made because I spent a lot of time rectifying all my mistakes. And you can save all that time and get off to a good start by a qualified teacher or somebody who is able to teach up to beginner intermediary stage, hands-on, one-to-one. Can't beat it. Anyway, that's enough of that. But yeah, all you're doing is putting downward pressure on the tool. The angle of attack of the tool to the work will also depend on whether you're going at that sort of level, or if I'm using this one, I'm more quite an angle here, more of an angle than I am with my radius skew. Yeah, I was over there with the straight skew. Again, it doesn't matter where you are, providing you remember to have support of the tool rest under your cut, or as near as you can get it. Okay, is it catch time, do you think?
Yeah.
To turn the blade down. Turn the blade down.
Mike Hugh has just put in a good point. He says, I tend to have a death grip with my left hand, which probably accounts for many of my problems. I would suggest it does. You want to be
I'm sure it
holding the
does.
tool and not
I've
gripping it
become
like that.
aware that on YouTube, most of the people I follow and watch, they've got big hands, same as I have, and their fingers wrap around and their thumb looks in the wrong place.
Yeah.
You're never cantilevering against your thumb. You're never gripping. You're never pulling with your hand.
No.
It's just a dead weight on top, and your fingers are there because otherwise they'd be in the way.
The other big problem, I think, and this applies to everybody, me included, if you are experiencing a problem, let's put it that way, things aren't going as you want them to go, it's a natural human reaction to try and plow through the problem. In other words, you're going to start, instead of having a grip like that, which is firm, but if I really yank it, I can get it out of my hand, as opposed to that, where I can't get it out of my hand. Now, if I employ that sort of a level of pressure on the tool, I've got no fluidity, because this hand is really dictating what's happening. And, you know, and what happens is if you start to go off the cut, you start to push a bit harder. Well, that gets into worse problems. If you're holding it lightly, if you get a catch, and I will try and demonstrate this difference between having a catch when you're holding it on for grim death, white knuckle, and the difference when you get a catch when you're holding it as you should do. It is, I won't say negligible, but it is negligible compared to what you can happen if you're really giving it some welly and you're hanging on for grim death. It's gonna
more often fixable if you've got flexible.
Yes, indeed.
The other thing about a vice-like grip, if you want to call it that, is you lose all feel. So you can't really feel what the tool's doing. You're forcing the tool through the wood. Just a lighter grip on your tool and feel where the tool is.
And I'll be honest and upfront with you, the tool that I have to keep telling myself this is the Skew. And you know, it's because it is not my primary, not my go-to tool. I want it to be, not because I want to be, look how clever I am. It's because it's such a versatile tool and leaves such a lovely finish. And it does give a lot of satisfaction when you do get those cuts right as well. So that's another thing. But luckily, I'm in it for the hobby, not for making a living. So I don't need to spend hours and hours and hours and hours to get my productivity up. I can do it when I want. Okay, so I've lost
Malcolm Douglas has said, can you do a V-cut? Yes, he can, Malcolm. He can do a V-cut either side of the bead that he's going to roll with the Skew. He ain't leaving tonight until he's done it.
I will do it now, believe me. The other thing I was going to say is, if you want to start off with a Skew, normally you can get an oval Skew as well as a round Skew, and the oval Skews, I don't know if they do now, they certainly were the Skew that came with the starter set of tools normally.
They still do, yeah.
Right, they still do. I'm not a fan of it. It's personal, mainly because of the sharpening. But you know, I just find it's sharpenable, of course it is, but it takes a knack to get it right. However, one of the safest, in inverted commas, I hate that thing, is the little 1/2-inch Skew. The reason being is, even if it's straight across whatever, it is more like a sort of a thin badan, if you like, as opposed to a Skew. So you haven't got so much surface area that can be in contact with the wood, and it's a very forgiving tool, even in the straight standard form. So if you're considering looking at the Skew, and it's very capable, it can't shift as much wood, obviously, as a 1-inch, or you can get 1 1/4, 1.5-inch Skews if you should so wish, but it's a very good tool to learn because the principles are exactly the same. And if you mastered this, then you could go up to a 3/4 to 1 inch, and you know what you need to do, but just have to tweak it slightly because of the bigger tool. I just thought I'd bring that into. Right, okay, so we're now going to, what we're doing now? Do I need, we've got to do a catch first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because I got to use it. I got to sorry, what, for the catch? Yeah. And if I can't get a catch, then I'm sure my compatriots will give me a way of doing it.
It'll happen sometime later anyway. So
yeah, I'm not going to go 2,000 revs. Sorry about that. I've got to clean my glasses because it's very warm in here. Right. Okay.
Roy, I'll talk to you about that oval Skew sharpening if you want a bit later.
Is that too bright?
Nope.
Is that okay?
No, it's okay.
That's okay, because it means I can see what I'm catching. Okay, we'll go with my preferred skew. Okay, now the point I was making before, when you're doing a planing cut, okay, there's a catch. Now,
there you go, just like that.
what happened there? I was talking.
Not paying attention.
I wanted to pay attention, and all I did, I was, doing this, caught the.
Now, see, this is my other comment on skews. They're very much like that jealous girlfriend. You take her down the pub, and as long as you're looking at her and paying 100% attention, she's fine. If your eyes wander across the pub to somebody else, she's going to bite you.
Yeah.
The skew's just the same. It takes 100% attention.
Okay, so let's go. Let's do it properly. Okay, we're doing our 2000 RPM. I'm applying downward pressure. Okay, not with this finger because that would start to turn it. I'm applying downward pressure on anchor, bevel, lift the handle. I'm getting my cut. Now you can see where I'm cutting, hopefully. Now I'm going to start moving my hand to the right. So the cut is going to start to creep up. Can you see it creeping up? Creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. Now that point, this point here, is getting very close, is it not?
The tool.
Now this isn't for effect. No, there we go. At this point here, that's a gouge, not a spiral, that's a gouge. But what's happened there, I've been going down here and I've been lifting my right hand so that I'm making that, making the toe get nearer and nearer and nearer. So if I do it with the lathe off, and I'm doing the same thing, there, it's catching and it's doing that. Now, if I was holding the tool with absolute, let's get this one, will that show? Yeah. If I was holding the tool really hard, then the forces are going to be greater. Okay, so just check everything's locked up so it doesn't fly off the lathe. So I am now holding it much harder. With much, look, you can see, look, it's really doing, go straight into it, right? If I'm holding it lightly, same thing happened, but it's sort of,
yeah, has room to move. It has room to move and get off
exactly
the wood.
what
rather
it's doing
than
here.
Continue to dig in.
It's making it much worse. Here, it's hardly, well, it's perceptible, obviously, and this is really horrible wood. It's very wide-grained. I was going to say shite then, shouldn't say that. Okay, so yeah, but yeah, you could see what's happened here. It's really dug into it. So that is now the other thing. If you're doing a round over, you want to follow this, for example. The same thing applies. Okay, now if I'm going that way in, I want to put, personally, I like to put my right foot forward a little bit so that when I go round the corner, I'm not sort of falling off myself. That's just me. Okay, so we start with a cut. Now there's two ways of doing a round over. You can do it this way, where you, as long as you're applying forward pressure, you're not going to get a catch. So you follow around as you would with a gouge. I'm going slow so you can see what I mean. Now, once you get to that point, you can do what you like. It's not going to move anywhere because you're perpendicular to the cut, and all you're doing is the edge is in.
Okay? Do that again in overhead.
Yep, will do. Well, hopefully. You never know. Might do. Okay, so again, the same sort of cut. Right foot is slightly sort of around the corner already, and I'm leaning away. Anchor, bevel, pick up the cut. Now I'm not holding it hard, I'm just following, and I'm doing it slow. No problem with doing it. You see a few ridges because I'm not actually following the curvature properly. But the point I'm making is that I'm pushing forward all the time. I'm not pushing with great vigor, I'm twisting now because I'm going down towards the center of the blank, pushing forward, pushing forward, pushing forward, pushing forward. Now I'm at 90 degrees, nothing's happening. Okay, so that there is, we started here, didn't start there. But the point I'm making is that's quite a nice surface. This wood is horrible wood, and it is burnishing really there. The other way of doing that cut is using the point, just using the point there. So again, you engage the cut and you follow around literally just with the point of the skew. Now I'm starting to put forward pressure and I'm twisting to get that curvature and safety, the level, you know. So there's two ways of doing it. Some people find the point method, you can do it with the toe as well, but that is a little bit more don't like that very much, but you can do it with a toe. But the only reason I'm showing all these different methods is that there's more ways to skin a cat than the one, if you like. So that covers the round over. I need a bigger blank now so I can put it in the chuck so I can do a proper, a slicing cut to clean up end grain like you would with a spindle gouge. But while we're on this, anything else on this?
Well, Roy's asked what caused the spiral, but Mark's answered that 100%.
I didn't, yeah, and the answer was?
The spiral is caused by the cutting edge having no support from the flat of the bevel. So basically, once it starts to go, then you're just basically on the cutting edge and it will throw itself along a piece of work by the bevel and cause you a
there we are,
spiral.
there we are, right, okay.
Mark Harvey's asked, is an oval skew easier than a bevel skew? He's never used either. Mark, the first skew that you have good success with is the perfect skew. They all have advantages and disadvantages. I have Cove wave skew, the Ashley Isles rolled edge skew. I have oval skews. I have round bar skews. I have square skews. They all have their place, and I like them all. But they all have a particular cut that they're particularly good at. The Cove wave skew I find absolutely great for finesse and fine detail. The Ashley Isles skew, that's a workhorse. That gets everything done, and it gets it done quick. If you're doing a stair spindle and you've got that long taper, it'll just slice that away without thinking about it. But if you want to get in a nice detail, then the slightly thinner, slightly lighter Colwyn waist skew gets in there beautifully. Same with the oval skews, the round skews. They've got a particular cut they do particularly well.
Carry on,
but they all do all the cuts. It's just whatever suits you. The thing we were talking about when we were planning this earlier, or yesterday, if you're doing a set of beads with a narrow gap between them, and you've got a wide skew, you've got a problem. So a small narrow skew comes into its own in that.
I can actually demonstrate.
My sharper bevel comes in because it gets into those small spaces.
I can demonstrate that with the parting tool actually, because do a narrow V, and it won't be exactly right because the bevels aren't equal, obviously, but it'll show it. Right. Is there anything else on this particular blank that I can do? Do you think? There's no point doing a V cut on that. We'll do a V cut on a nicer piece of wood, if you like. Okay.
Frank Riley from Long Island, New York, joined us. Good evening.
Hiya, Frank, and welcome from all that way. You are very welcome, sir.
Phil Boulter's in as well, so is Nigel Oram.
A good evening to you, gentlemen, and welcome. And I'll reiterate again, if you've got any questions whatsoever, that's the whole point of a demo, of a live like this. Get those questions in the chat, and either myself, Pete, or Brian, or indeed somebody in the chat will answer it for you. That's the whole idea. And no question is a silly question. As I keep saying to my good lady, Do you love me? Don't be silly. That's a silly question. I said, no, it's not. You might not, but I'm totally unaware of it. So she said, okay, now you want me to be honest? Fair enough. She said, go and pack your bags. So I wish I hadn't asked that question. So yeah, anyway, it's question time, isn't it? Okay, so is there anything else on that particular blank, or shall I get another one up?
Get another one, Mike.
I'll get another one up. Get another one up. Okay. So you keep them entertained, and I'll put. Now this is a piece of not the best wood in the world for this, but it's oak, I think. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the overhead. Keep the lads on just for a minute. So this is a bigger blank. This is, well, I say bigger. It's not huge. It's nearly 2.5 inches or something. Hopefully, I'll get that into me medium gripper jaws. Now, the reason I am using a live center as opposed to my steb is because I could actually do this without going into the chucks over a bit of time, because there's enough there for me to show what I want to show, methinks. I've got to get right to the middle. Okay, so here we are again. I'm going to rough down. As I say, I could use I'm going to use what I normally would use. And I'll keep you on. You want the full? Do you want the full? Yeah, the lads can talk and see it there. That's better.
That's better.
Okay, yeah. Always check it doesn't foul the tool rest. Okay, now that's approximately where I want to be. It's a bigger blank, so my tool rest is slightly higher. So again, with a blank like this,
Dewey has a question.
Yeah.
Dewey says, what's the best skew to buy for and size for learning?
Right. Okay. Again, I'll bring the guys in. I'll give you my opinion first and make it which will be a first in the Walt history of doing a quick. The best skew for you is the one that works for you, but you won't know what works for you. My advice would be to get either a 3/4 or an inch skew with rolled edges, either a Sorby, Ashley Isles, Henry Taylor, Hope, Cryo, any good skew, and leave it in the original format. See how you get on with it. That is my advice.
All of them.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've got 4 here, and I've got 3 others in the drawer. Some of them are only that big. I'll show you one of them, just for a laugh. That was the very, very first skew that I bought. So it's a little bit short. I use that for messing about.
I have to say that in most starter kits nowadays, if you buy a starter kit, you will get a 1-inch oval skew. You'll get an oval skew.
Still get an oval
because oval skews are slightly easier to use than straight skews or flat skews.
But not to sharpen, they're not.
But they're a little bit more difficult to sharpen.
Yeah, it's not impossible to sharpen them.
And Marcus commented there. He says a 1-inch rolled edge straight skew. So an Ashley Isles rolled edge skew
that would actually be the one I would recommend. The Ashley Isles 1-inch rolled edge, which is this one, and it is a beautiful, beautiful tool.
Yeah, it does indeed.
This is a good one as well. That's a Hamlet,
and they're not that expensive either.
40 odd quid.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, Dewey, it's the same in everything. Buy the best you can afford. I mean, don't just buy. If you want to play around with it and see if you like the general concept, if you get something like that, it'll give you a bad impression of what a skew can do, because it's light. The stock is thinner. It's high-speed steel, of course it is. It's not as meaty as the 8 mil. This is a 5 mil, 8 mil. The others, I think yours is 8 mil as well, Pete, isn't it? It just has that, and it has the rolled edge ready on it. You don't have to do it yourself. It's no big deal doing it yourself, but it's better to start off with a decent skew And I would suggest either the inch or the 3/4 inch. This little one, I mean, I use that a lot on small stuff. And I've had this since I started, well, maybe a year after I started turning. And I've used it, possibly not more than anything else, but I use it on a lot of smaller stuff. I even like using it on outside of goblets and stuff like that, where I could use the bigger one. But I'm just so confident with it. But all it needs when you go up a little bit is a slight alter of the physics, that's all, but the same method. So yeah, in my opinion,
from Mikhail, he said, is the skew only for spindle work or can it be used on the outside of bowls? Mark has answered him, but Mike, you go as well.
I would say, why would you want to use a skew on the outside of a bowl? You could use it as a negative rate scraper, but why would you want to? I personally would say the skew is really, it's not quite as definitive as a spindle roughing gouge, should never be used on a bowl. You can use a skew to form your tenons, and you can use a skew, if you've got it at the right angle, to form your mortises for a dovetail and your tenons for a dovetail.
Yeah. Very, very limited use.
Certainly not for cutting the outside of a bowl. Absolutely not.
This is my original little 3/4 inch Henry Taylor, which is ground to 15 degrees, which is the exact angle of the dovetails, internal and external, on the Axminster jaws. So I use that for the mortise, and then sorry, I use that for the tenon if I've got that out. And I did a little thing that Phil Irons did, and I did that on a cheap, this is my original Axminster scraper, would you believe? And that's for my tenons.
Oh, tenon, yeah.
Whereas this edge here is parallel with the headstock, and then that goes in and gives me an exact 15 degrees, which is what I need for my chucks. So there are many ways to skin a cat, but you can use a standard skew to do your tenons. You just have to do a little bit of fine tuning. But on a bowl, really, the only time I'd ever use a skew is for that. I wouldn't use it to shear scrape the outside.
Not a good idea.
No, it's not meaty enough, you see. If you use a scraper, even if you haven't got a negative rate scraper, and use a standard on the outside of a bowl, if you use a standard square 1-inch scraper like that one, as long as that edge is is given a 45-degree cut, is presented, the wood is coming down on that edge at 45 degrees, you'll get a nice shaving. But be careful, because obviously you must be cutting in the middle because you don't want the edges to catch the bowl.
There's a very good reason not to abuse the skew. It's got 2 bevels that need sharpening, and my sharpener is an entire 1.5 steps over there.
Exactly.
So that's 3 steps by the time I get back here. Why would I abuse a skew as a negative rate scraper when I've got a negative rate scraper which will take a lot more abuse?
Exactly. So, you know, it's not a silly question, as I said before, but to be quite, I don't see the point. Like I don't see the point of, unless you're a production turner, of course, I don't see the point in using a spindle roughing gouge. If you're going to be doing skew work, then turn it around with the skew. Yeah. It might take a little longer, but it gives you more practice. I like to practice as much as I can on everything. And as somebody said, it might have been Pete or Brian or somebody, even Mark, has said that, you know, treat each cut as a practice cut. So in other words, take your time, get the cut. Even if you've got to make 20 cuts to get the inside of a bowl to where you want it, don't just hog the wood out. In the beginning, make each cut a good cut. Almost like a finishing cut for every cut. It takes longer, but that's where your practice comes in, your muscle memory, getting the thing right. Here endeth the last
Wood is
lesson.
expensive. You might as well use it for the best practice you can get out of it.
Yep.
Exactly. Or better still, get a bowl corer and get 3-4 bowls out of it.
And the only people who need to hurry are production turners. Everybody else is a hobby, you know. Just take your time.
I'm not knocking the word you used, hurry. Production turners become productive. That's what they're called, production turners. And they need to be as proficient as they can. And I always refer to Steve Jones. Steve Jones uses a skew chisel not because he likes to put up videos on YouTube, not because he wants people to say what a wonderful person he is. He uses it because it's the most efficient tool he's got for the work he does.
Yep.
That's why he is able to roll beads, pommels, V cuts, any cut. The only cut that
The
Steve
other difference with
uses.
production work is if you do, I find if you do 3 of something, you kind of suss out how you do it. From the 4th one onwards, you know which order to make your cuts to get the best production turning out of it.
Yeah.
So you're always thinking about, if I do that cut that direction instead of that direction, or in that order, then I'm going to get that done a little bit quicker.
Time
it's
is
always about
money.
knocking that bit of time off.
The guys who follow me, sorry.
You don't put the skew down to pick up a spindle gauge because it saves you 2 seconds.
The only time
2 seconds adds up.
Steve Jones only does that when he's got a tight cove, where he can't do it with his 1-inch skew. He'll just refine it and get to the bottom with, but all the rest of it is done with a skew. And he uses his spindle gauge just for those little nuances that need a tight
detail.
Need a tight radius. I'm just going to say something, but Pete threw me off. Doesn't matter. Okay. So, hey,
that's what I'm here for.
Yes, you ought to put me off. You do a very good job.
Yep.
Which glasses?
George K's got a question there, and I'm not quite sure where he's going with it. I don't know if someone asked this before, but I would like to ask your opinion about using your tools with hard or very hard woods, or only in smooth ones. My opinion is my tools are made of HSS, and they will cut any wood I can put in front of them. Yeah. Some woods will require me to go to the sharpener more often than others. Is all.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point in so much as, if again we go back to a production turning situation, or if you turn exotics mainly, let's say hardwoods mainly, then you will do a little bit of experimentation of the. We're talking about the skew only here, are we? I presume.
It doesn't specify, but yeah, I guess.
All right. Okay. The skew or any tool, you will alter the bevel angle that you employ on your tool to suit the job you're doing. If you're a general person like myself that gets a bit of everything and does mainly sort of hardish woods like ash and oak and so on like that, and burrs, I find what I use is fine. 24 degrees or whatever it is, 23, 25 degrees on my skews, is not everybody's cup of tea. It suits me because it virtually covers all the woods that I need to. If I went to a 15 degree and I was cutting, let's just say I was using a skew on a really hard wood, something like a bit of old, really dry oak or oak burr or whatever, well, most probably wouldn't use a skew on that anyway. But then I would have to have a more obtuse angle because the edge would last seconds, So it's horses for courses. There's no right thing. The late great Alan Batty, who was a skew master and a terrific teacher. If you want to have a proper tuition, go to his YouTube, or I think it's on Craft Supplies. It's a 2-hour video on the skew and a bit of spindle roughing gouge as well. And I watched that when I started turning, and I still refer to it now sometimes. Not because I'm so good I don't need to refer to it. It is my go-to video, if you like. And I fast forward up to, that's what I want to look at. Yes, that's right. I was right. He explains it extremely well. I've even gone as far as colouring a bit of wood in black, so you can see the cuts will go a bit later on. We're going to have to move on because otherwise it's going to be a mammoth. Not that I mind. I don't want to bore you lot. Okay, so we'll rough this piece of wood down.
There's the link for the Alan Batty video that Mike just referred to. Everyone wants to go watch it.
Alan Batty. And his son Stuart.
Wood turner said it depends on the diameter of the stock I'm turning.
It does.
What tool you use depends on the job you're doing. And
yeah, indeed. And what you're comfortable using.
What you're comfortable using, how many you've got to do, how quickly you want them done. Use the right tool for the right job.
So I've lost my safety glasses now. Ah, well. Oh, there they are. I can't see them because I haven't got the glasses on. Right, okay. So I'm going to be using, if I can find it, there we go. Okay, we're going to rough this down, and I'm going to use, I'm going to use both methods again, just so you can see it in operation. 2,300 RPM. It's a bigger piece of stock, so my tool rest is slightly higher. Okay, anchor, bevel, cut. I'm going to take slightly bigger cuts now.
Notice that Mike is curving down in with each cut. Think of sharpening a pencil, following the fibres of the wood. And Wayne the woodturner has joined us, and he says, as a bowl turner, I need to get as many bowls in a day as possible.
Yeah.
All right, Wayne. The other way, as I say, is my preferred method. Put the tool rest ever so slightly. Hang on, let's get rid of that little bit at the end there. I'm doing exactly the same thing, except the other way. Put the tool rest a little bit closer, and then use the peeling cut, which Wayne will remember from Maker Central. And this is why I'm using, I cut it that way, have that straight edge. I should have really put my smock on, you know. Never mind.
Nah, you'd be right. Shaving your knickers is good for you.
Okay, and now you just swivel it slightly and go across the length of the wood.
Wayne just made a comment. He said the Flying Goblet Brothers.
Yes, yes. Yeah, for sure, Wayne. Good times, mate. Good times. Okay, we're not going to worry about that too much. That'll go while we're doing this. Yes, we are going to worry about it. We're going to get rid of it now.
Yeah, do it.
It's annoying me.
Cat and the Fish Crafting has joined us. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining. Oh, dear. And the other trouble is I could now. No, I can't. I can't put my dust filter. I normally always get your dust filtration, everything on, and I normally wear a respirator, but for demoing, you wouldn't be able to hear my dulcet tones, which might be a good thing. Okay. We covered the planing cut and we covered the peeling cut, which I've just done there. Now, if I go to the other cam, and you excuse me here.
And Glenn, the Yorkshire Git, has joined us. Good evening.
Hello, Yorkshire Git.
Yeah,
How are you, Glenn? Nice to see you, mate. Nice to see you. Believe that? You believe anything? There we go. Now we just got to get a bit of focus. Sorry about this, guys. Is that good? Is that focused?
Yep. Yep, it is, right.
Okay.
I can read that Axminster thing on the end of that.
Hang on. Right, focus manual. And we could actually do a little bit more.
Well, that's good, Mike.
Iris, how's that? That's better. Okay. Okay, so come back around again. Is that okay? Yeah, that's good enough. Okay, so now I got to do a peeling cut. I could put it in the jaws, but I think I can show this without doing that. Normally, if you want to, I tell you what, I'm going to put it in the jaws. Sorry about this, guys. I've decided I am my own boss, so I shall do it.
Just as well, eh?
Yeah. You might
So
actually get in there, you know. Why did you get in there, you know? Right, okay. So
Just so you know, you're off camera.
more than that.
Mark says that's a nice bit of oak you got there.
Yeah. It's very dry, I'll tell you that, Marky boy. Let's see if I can do what I did at UKIS that time and get the Tenon incorrect 4 times. That was a laugh.
Changed it overhead a minute, Mike, will we?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. I can do that until I
we get it in the chuck.
Get rid of the stab. a little trick which
There's no Jules. If I don't steal Mark's, I can come and steal yours.
What's that?
There's Jules.
I tell you what, these medium gripper jaws, I would say, are possibly my favourite.
I've got Mark's piranha jaws in line. Well,
all right.
My piranha jaws are currently imbued until I can get down there and steal them. But those are quite nice as well. I might have to steal those as well.
I've got piranha jaws. I very rarely use them, I'll be honest with you. Anyway, it's horses for courses, is it not? How true is my valley? Oh, look at that. Absolutely perfect. Okay, so now, if we were going to, this is actually a little bit far out, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have tailstock support for a reason. Okay, now let's go back to that view now. We want to clean up the end grain. Yeah. Now again, my go-to tool for that normally would be a spindle gouge, and what you do there, this is where the overhead might come in handy as well. That one there, no, that's not good. That one there, yeah, that'll do. Let's make that a little smaller. I can't, that's a shame. Okay, sorry about this, guys. I will get used to this StreamYard. How's that? Yeah, that should be all right.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, normally, if you've got to face off a piece like this, you will have your bevel parallel with your headstock, and you just pick up the cut and you will go from the edge to the center to clean up the end grain. Okay, if we get rid of that.
Michael's asking, why does the chisel scoot left or right when you put the chisel in? It's because you haven't got that bevel parallel with the cut.
Correct.
So that's how you would clean up the end grain. For whatever reason you want to clean up the end grain. Okay. Now, you could use your skew chisel to do the same thing. I have to say, this is not my most successful cut. Okay, and what you're basically doing, it's the same action as it would be with a parting tool. Okay, you start high up on the wood and you literally, just with a point, now where you need the overhead just slightly, what needs to happen here is that you're leading with the toe, your heel needs to be, this bevel needs to be pointing in the direction you want to go, which is straight across. Now, as you can see, there's a gap here. That gap needs to be as small as you can make it. And that way you get a good cut. So what you're doing, you literally, now if I go to the video cam again, what you're doing literally is this. You're leading with the point. The edge behind the point is slicing through the wood as well, and then you go down to the center. Okay. So not massive cuts because you're just facing off. So you start high up in the wood. My left bevel, as I'm looking at it, this bevel here is parallel with the direction I want to go in. And you just take a small amount and you make your way, make your way to the middle. I've fallen off the cut there, not a problem. Pick it up again, and now I got a catch. So we've really got to face this off now. down to the middle. Okay. I think you'll find and see it's a lovely finish. So that is another way of doing it. Now, I got a catch there. Did it cause a lot of problem? No, it didn't. We got about 6-7 inches hanging out from the chuck here. It just scooted back because my grip was nice and firm, not hanging on for grim death. And that is why the majority of people, in my opinion, get afraid of the skew, is because they get a massive catch. Now here, if I got a really bad catch here, with this blank sticking out as far as it is from the chuck, although I've got a good, I don't know, over half an inch of tenon there in a good set of jaws, I could still unseat it. If not fly out, I could get it off center if I got a massive catch. I got a catch there, and because I wasn't holding everything for grim death, it just skipped back a bit. No harm, no foul, as they say. Okay, so that is
you don't need that bit of wood, do you?
Why?
Have a go at taking a bit too much. Just demonstrate the problem.
Sorry?
Have a go at taking a bit too much. Get a bit too greedy with your cut.
Okay.
Show how it goes wrong.
Okay.
You've just got 100 people watching you, but only 54 of them like it. Get your thumbs up, people.
Yeah, no, okay. No, I'm hanging on. There you are, look. I got to do it now. Hang on.
When you get to a point where the wedge gets in there, it binds, and then you get a catch.
Well, look, it's not coming out because they're a good set of jaws, but you can see that is really.
It takes a tool out. That's what it does.
Yeah, look what it's done. It's
torn
it up like that. Oh, you can't see that end because I've got the right camera on. Okay, it's really torn it up. It's really torn it up. And that is purely because I was holding on too hard. I had the same sort of a catch prior. So what we do now is just go down and clean it up. Really, when you're doing a cut like this, you want to take a smaller cut as you can, because number one, it makes it easier for you, and number two, you're not wasting wood, and number three, you shouldn't really need to take that much away to get a nice, hang on a minute, I got an idea. Let's rough that up with a spindle gouge. Just rough it up. How can I do that? I'll tell you what, because I'm going to be doing a heavy cut, I'm going to turn the speed right down and just force the tool through the work. Okay, and that should tear it up nicely. Has it? Not really. I got wonderful action, you see. That's the trouble. Hang on, let's get rid of that now. Square that up. I can't do it now. Tell you what I'll do. Hopefully that's torn it up a bit. Yeah, does it show? It does. Yeah. It's not very smooth. It's not very smooth. So, excuse me. You only need to get rid of that the same as you would with a gouge, leading with a point, going down. And believe me, the way to get proficient at it is to do it lots of times. See, when I started, I was starting down here, and it's too much wood, and also it's not high enough. It doesn't give a point. Now I can go down here and just start again. Just like a parting tool. Up and over. Let the point lead the way. We've got a little nib there, like we get with everything. And we got a bit of a crown there, so you could just clean that off. And I think you'll find that's a nice surface. Okay, so that's the slicing cut and the versatility of those 3 cuts. Now we'll go on to doing we've done a round over, haven't we? Yeah. Now, as we were saying before, just give this a little touch up. Might as well show you doing it as I am, because it's hardwood. I'll be giving it some welly, so just give it a touch up. As I say, contact on both edges of the bevel, and literally just give it a light going, and do the same amount, you know, on the other side. And this will just refresh your edge ready for work. Okay, so we've got any questions, because I want a vape. Oh, we do over time. An hour and 40. Okay.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Okay.
Quite
It's quite short for a Welsh person.
Yeah. 2.5 hours is my average, but it all depends on people's questions, how many people are left, how many people want to see anything else. We are here to please.
So we had 100 people in.
Sorry? Say
100
again?
people in, so you've got quite a lot of people watching.
Well, thank you once again, everybody. And if I've missed, as I'm sure I have, saying hello to a few of you, my apologies, but I really am appreciative of you joining.
Brian and I have missed welcoming some people in, but as you can understand, trying to get a word in edgeways with Mike is almost impossible.
We've got most of them.
Oh, you did. You done a marvelous job.
Yeah, we've done
It's
all
snowing
right.
in here. The dandruff is terrible.
That's shocking. So it's coming out the beard or the hair?
Well, there's no hair to come out of, is there? It's my eyebrows. Could be my eyebrows, possibly. Right.
Mike, is that one of James's sharpeners?
Sorry?
The diamond card, is it one of James's?
Yes, it's James Barry Sharpening. Yeah, it's James's. I've actually got a couple of his bits and bobs. This is the 180-300, and he also does a 300 and 600. No, the reason I use the 180 for this sort of thing is because I'm doing a lot of. Normally, I would either go with the 300 or the 600 even. It depends what you want. As I say, the finer the edge or the sharper the edge, if you like, it loses longevity. But when I don't normally abuse my skew like I have here. I'm normally very gentle with it because that's what it's for. It's not for sort of hacking away. Even when you're doing a peeling cut, you do it nice and slow. And we're talking about speed and production turners, very quickly going off piece slightly. People who follow me on Facebook or whatever will know that I did a commission, a deep salad bowl. I couldn't make a living doing those because it took me too long. Because if I do something that someone's got to pay for, it is as perfect as I could possibly get it. And I don't do enough of them to become proficient number-wise, you know. So there lies the difference, as I keep saying, between a production turner and somebody like myself. They sort of gave me the request, and I said yes. And because of work and everything else, and allowing myself a bit of time as well, I said I'll get it done for you within the next 10 days to a fortnight. And they said that's fine. But you know, the majority of people who place orders for production stuff ain't going to wait a fortnight. So you know. Anyway, there's the difference. Okay, shall we press on? Overhead V-cut. Are you speaking to me, lads?
Yes, we're still here.
No, we're not talking to you anymore. We're fed up with you.
Yeah, we're doing V-cuts now. We'll go do beads and coves.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's handy to do a V-cut first before you do a bead, isn't it, really, to allow you room
you need to
turn
define
your
the edge.
bead, you know. Okay. This bit of green on here is really annoying me now. Okay, so a V-cut. Again, the same as with a gouge, as I was showing there when we cleaned up the edge there with the spindle gouge to begin with. The bevel was facing in the direction I wanted it to go. The same applies to a skew chisel. If I want a V-cut, like so, then that is the angle that it's got to go in. And if
Fred
I want...
has got to go. Good night, Fred.
Good night, Fred. Take care. So again, we start at this end, put a V-cut here. So I'm starting the direction of my my bevel and lift into the cut. And I'll do the same here. So again, start there and get the cut and in. So there's my V-cut. If I want to widen that V-cut, I just have to alter the direction, and I'm lifting the handle in the direction of the bevel. And the same over here. Okay.
It's important to remember the bevel is your guide, and obviously you're using the left-hand bevel for the left-hand cut and the right-hand bevel for the right-hand cut.
So let's say you want the bead there. So this is how wide the bead's going to be. So we'll do another cut there and another cut there. A bit more. You see, a production turner would be losing money already, wouldn't they, Mark? Okay, so now roll a bead. Now there are two ways I like to put the tool rest up a little bit while I'm rolling the bead with the skew. Now I could, well, I say cheat. If I use my little 1/4 inch, I haven't got a problem. But I've got to use this. Now the only thing you've got to make sure of is you've got enough space to work with. Now,
I've got to say, I find the bigger skew easier to use than the smaller one.
Yeah, well, you know, as I say, it's horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you could start, as most people do, again, anchor bevel, and start with a, I'm moving, when I'm doing this, I'm not just lifting the handle and moving the tool forward through the wood, I'm also moving this way. I'll stop the lathe for a minute. That's
We'll
another
body shot in a minute as well.
Okay, well I can do that, I think.
Easier to show the motion of the tool from there, yeah.
That's no good, is it?
The tailstock's in place, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay. I really want tailstock and overhead, don't I? Really?
If you can, yeah.
Yeah. Bear with me a second, lads and lasses, please. I think I might have done that on there. Have I can't call it. Yes, I have. Okay, so we want tailstock and overhead, don't we? So I want to move the overhead up. Right, bear with me a second. If I put you on there, then you can talk to the lads while I get this sorted out. Okay, so if I move that up and that up, doesn't do a thing. So
Nigel says it's only taken a couple of hours, but now I know that I've been introducing the tool too low into the wood.
Good. Yeah. And by good, I mean it's good that you're going away with something.
Oh, something good.
Okay.
The skew tends to be, it's really hard to say because it depends on your height, the lathe height, the tool rest height, and the wood size, but it wants to be a bit above center. Pretty much all the cutting it does.
Yeah. Well, that's almost true.
As I said earlier, if you sort of present yourself as if you're about to start the cut, make sure your shoulders are level and relaxed, and that will give you flexibility to run through the cut.
Yeah. It does depend, as Mark said earlier on, it depends on the size of the blank. If you're doing a small blank like a finial and you've got about 1 inch of round you're working with, I'll say it's not as critical. It still makes for better cutting if you've got the tool rest the right height, but you're going to have it lower than you would do if you've got a 6-inch round on there. unless you get on your knees, because it really would be, your handle would be so low for you to actually rub the bevel. So you've got to raise the tool rest. So as I said before, and I don't mind banging on about it, it's not the height of the tool rest which is important. It is the height at which your tool engages the wood to do the cut, whether it be a skew chisel, a spindle roughing gouge, or a spindle gouge. It doesn't matter. Even a parting tool, I guarantee you there are very few people that have spent time practicing parting stuff off. Take my advice, spend a little time, because it makes so much difference when you get it right. And it's the same action as I was doing on that slicing cut, where you literally go in like that, not like that. You can go straight in to get rid of the fuzzies, but then you want to lower the handle and just go in like that. Okay.
Frank's on to leave us. Good evening. Good night, Frank.
All the best, Frank. Thanks for popping in, mate. I appreciate it. Is that the right one now? Yeah, I think that's okay.
How about you, Brian? This beer's going down well.
Isn't it? Mine too. Every time he takes me back off the camera.
Okay, so we are now going to roll a bead. So this is, now what Pete was saying is, and Brian agreeing, was it's the same thing when you're using a spindle gouge. I know it sounds a bit silly. If I want to go from left to right, I want to be slightly to the left, yeah, because I got to end up over there. So I want to be comfortable at the end of the cut, which is over here. And conversely, when I'm going from right to left, I don't want to be over here. I want to be basically in the middle, if you like, and I want to lean into the cut that way. Okay, so you can either use the point, which is slightly easier, which I'll do to begin with on the first one. Okay, so all we're doing again is anchor, bevel, get the cut. Now watch what I'm doing. I'm going to be doing this. Okay, my body is going to be moving. I'm always pushing forward. I come off the cut. I'm not bothered. Doesn't bother me. Okay, now I'm moving across. Let's get this way. Moving across, pushing forward, moving around. Starting there. Now with the point, it's easier. So you get your point. Lift the handle. Now I'm at sort of vertical, it's not going to do any damage. Now the other way, I want to come this way. So again, using the point.
To be clear, that's what we call the heel, the low point on the shaft.
Yeah, sorry, using the heel. And swinging the handle.
You can use the toe for this as well, the high point, which does give you better visibility and possibly will help you understand the cut you're making. But it's not as
using the bevel. Using the toe.
Yeah, it can be done.
Yeah.
You can see the process.
I was going to do that because you can actually, if you use the toe, you've got much better visibility. But I just wanted to show you here. We've got a bit of a high point there, and to be honest with you, it is only a very slight high point. You can fiddle about, or literally just with a small bit of. This is just 240.
Same with Cove. You chase that little line down in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget about that. Just get it right and then just touch it with a bit of abrasive and it's done.
Yeah.
I would use something a bit stronger than this, but you can see there we've got a bead basically. So what I'm saying is, if you've got a bit of a high point, don't fiddle around with it. Leave it as it is and just round off the top. It's not going to be, you're not going to get hung for doing that. The other way of doing it, I'll do it on the same bead, is, as Pete says, and Brian, use the toe, the point, and literally the same idea. The point is leading. So you start the cut, and the same motion. You can see what you're doing. I mean, obviously cheating slightly because I'm following the same radius, but I'm pushing forward all the time. And there we've got the same thing. I could go back and forth on that. You could cheat and just do that. Take up the groove. And then you've got a bit of sanding to do. But with practice, and I will say, I'm not that adept with a skew, but it shows you that you can do it with a skew. And you can use either the heel or the toe. But the advantage of using the toe is that you can see what you see where you're going. You can see the angle of your bevel and everything. This way you're working blind, but it can still be done, but you need a bit more practice. Or should I say I need a bit more practice. But I hope that's demonstrated how to do that. Now,
and we've been telling Mike that for years, but Mark, Brian, myself, we've all been going at him, but he likes his curved skews.
Yeah, he
does.
I do.
We can do about it. We can't fix him.
No.
Here's Mike.
I'm happy with what I'm at. I still practice with the straight skew. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this now. Okay, so yeah, coves. You can do a cove. Of sorts.
Yeah.
You can do shallow coves. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. A shallow, long cove you can make.
Yeah.
Like the cove you would make in a tool handle, you can make that easy enough with a skew. But
conversely, they're also very good at narrow Gothic coves where you've got a very steep side.
Yeah.
But the same principle.
Better than a spindle gouge.
The same principle applies, whereas you go downhill on both. Now, if I use the 3/4, I can do a slightly steeper cove.
Baz from Real Simple Things just joined us.
Who, sorry?
Good evening, Baz.
Baz from Real Simple Things.
Hello, Baz, and welcome.
Partial alright today, Baz.
And if you use your little skew, you can see you can do. Whoop, there you are. There's a little catch.
Okay.
Whoop, come off the bevel there.
And that catch is exactly the same as you get what we call a skate back on a spindle gouge.
Yep.
Totally.
See,
it's
look.
Exactly the same, and it's caused by the same problem.
Yeah, that's what's happening. A nice little thing. I'm just catching the ends there without getting my bevel. But because I'm not gripping on for grim death, it doesn't. I mean, that there takes 2 seconds to sort out.
Yeah, flexible is fixable.
Yeah. So again, lift the handle, keep bevel contact, go towards the middle, and as you can see, all I'm doing here is showing you can do a tighter cove. But again, why would you use a chisel, chisel when you can just get, this is a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, you know, it's for hogging wood away. When you can use your spindle gouge to do the same job. And you do your bit of playing around and get it. It's not perfect, I know, but I think you get the idea.
It's not bad.
And, you know, at the end of the day, that needs to come in a bit. As I'm talking, I shall do that.
It's just what you said earlier, Mike, is you use the right tool for the job.
Yeah, I mean,
that suits you the best.
The whole idea is to show everybody what the Skew can do, and you can do a cove with it, you can do a bead with it, but you can. Oh yes, I know what it was. We were going to quickly just touch very quickly before everybody goes to sleep, just on the reason for the more acute angles. If we take this V cut here, okay, I can get in there quite nicely. Let's go here. That's not a good idea. Let's try here. Okay. Am I on the? Yeah, I am. I'll just do another V cut here. I want to keep this as narrow as possible. Now you can see there that I have got both bevels in there. Okay. So we can safely say that the included angle of that bead of that V cut is approximately 50 degrees. Yeah. Now, if I take, this is not a, I've lost it now. That's Pete's fault. What have you done with it, Pete? There it is. If we pretend that this is an equal bevel, okay? So if I do that, it's an equal bevel, isn't it? Do you agree?
Yep.
Both sides.
Okay.
So that ain't got to go in there, is it? It's only got to go into the first, I don't know, eighth of an inch. It ain't going to go in anymore. And that's the whole point. I mean, I can make a bead with that. I don't know if I'll be able to, actually. We'll never use this for that.
Beading and bottom tool.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is my new my new V cutting tool. It's got to make a wide V, whereas if I'm using an ordinary, you can see there's a lot of space there, a lot of space. So that does, if you have a more obtuse angle, inclusive angle, it reduces the finesse, if you like, or the size of the V cut that you can make, which is pretty obvious, I think. Okay. Oh, one more cut. Just want to do one more to show you the other, I don't know what they call it in the wood turning, but I can't remember. My brain's gone. When you're doing a pommel.
See, when I started out turning, all I was given was a skew.
Sorry?
All I was given was a skew. That's all I could use.
All right, okay.
And I was told until I managed to shape a piece of wood with that, I wasn't allowed to use any other tools.
No.
So for me, the skew isn't frightening. It isn't in any way a strange tool. It's just the tool to use.
Yeah.
But as you said with the Cove, it isn't always the right tool to use.
No.
It'll do it, but it's not necessarily the right tool.
Exactly. It's like we were saying earlier on that if we have a spindle roughing gouge in our hands, and if you're doing a lot of shallow coves like pepper mills or tool handles, whatever, you can do all that with your spindle roughing gouge. So in other words, again, you're more efficient because you rough down to round, and you can do the basics. Well, not the basic shape, you can do the finished shape, get a good cut with the spindle roughing gouge. So it's horses for courses, as it is in most cases for most things. All right, this is, well, it's a round over, isn't it? Is what it's called. And the reason I got the black bit of wood on there is you can see how clean a cut we'll get with it.
Well, we can't because we're looking at a tool shop.
No, I know that. You see, they don't stop, do they? I mean, they're continually beriding me.
We're here to harass you, Mike. That's what we're here for.
You have to stop bullying him, Pete.
I've just got to have some of my beer.
No, you don't. You're right. You don't.
You never stop, Pete. Oh, if you do, you and I are going to fall out, mate. All right.
This is true.
The gentleman wood turner wants to see a straight shoulder pommel and a curved shoulder pommel, please. He didn't say please, by the way. But...
No. Okay.
Yeah, but I quite like to see that as well.
And by a pommel, you mean like on here? Over there.
Got a square for the mortise for the tabletop to go onto.
I don't
and
know.
a pommel to go down to the round leg.
I don't know these things. Okay. So we're going to go from here, about there, take the corner off, and keep it square, obviously, on the rest. Now, this is not a perfectly square piece of wood. So, if again, same thing. Just to show you how that's going. You can see it's not, they're not equal, but the idea, there's a crack there as well. Oh, it's not a crack, sorry, it's a bandsaw mark. But the idea is that, and that is a really clean cut. Not because I'm good, because it's the Skew that's doing it. Now you can do that with the point as well. Not as easily. So, is that the cut you were talking about, young man?
No, Mark says you have to cut the tenon first and then cut the pommel down to the tenon.
Oh, right, okay. I see what you mean. Oh, I'm with you. Okay. Ah, right, okay. You can tell I do a lot of production work, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
But bearing in mind, this is not going to be square, but it'll give you the idea.
Yeah, squarish.
Okay, so let's get rid of all that then.
Mm-hmm.
Turn the speed up, man.
So that's the
tenon. But we'd have to use a slicing cut to just to clean this up.
We should have used that first.
So that's cleaned up that. So
Yeah,
what do you want
to?
Surely you want it a bit deeper than that.
Yeah, that's what he said. Mark's just put that in. He said a thinner tenon would be good.
Yeah.
You need something to go down too.
Yeah, that's true. I was just looking at that. I thought
trying to trip you up. Just for the other viewers, Mark was supposed to be in as a earworm tonight, but we've got internet problems at his place, so.
Well, thank God he wasn't. He's enough of a pain now, just as a.
So he's harassing us from the chat instead.
Just as a watcher. Mark. Can you imagine what it'd be like if he was actually. And the reason we got the resonance is I'm actually applying more pressure than I should. Is that deep enough? Or a bit more?
Yeah,
a bit more?
Give yourself somewhere to go.
How's that? Or
yeah,
more?
do a straight pommel first and then round it off.
So a straight pommel first. So we're talking from here to there, yeah? Yeah. Do you mean right down to there?
Yep. So curve it round a bit more.
Okay. So where do you want me to go from here then? I'm in your hands now.
What do you reckon, Mark?
Go right down to here.
Yeah, that's a square face on it. Yeah, that's a square face. So is that butts? So you've got the round, a slight bit of round coming down, and you've got a square face.
Yeah.
And then the round pommel is when it just goes round all the way down.
Round all the way there.
Mm-hmm.
From here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
Mark's saying use the toe as a V-cup.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's got to do this and they want to cheat, then if you just run a Japanese saw, some thin-bladed saw, just to take those corners, a little cut, just to give you a starting point. Make sure they stay square. If you do it in pine, sometimes, Mike can't do this, but if you put a bit of masking tape around it, that will help keep the corners nice and square as well.
Okay.
That looks quite nice.
That's not too bad. Bit of a ridge there, but I haven't reached the bottom yet, so I've still got an opportunity. Hey, there we go.
First catch of the night. First real catch.
First proper catch of the night.
It's a good
Was that what you wanted, Mark?
There we go. It's a cracker.
Look at that. Look at that. So but again, if I'd have been hanging on to that for grim death, that would have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it'd be far, far worse. And that's how difficult it is to clean it up.
So just to show.
Mark is actually rolling about in the floor now.
He says, I'm so happy right now.
There we go. I'm happy with that. Right. Okay. So basically, what that showed is that it gives a really good finish, even if you get a catch. There's a bit of a ridge there, obviously, which I've got to knock out, otherwise I'll be told off about it. So just go across nice and fine, and just go across. Come down. That should actually come in a bit steeper, etc. I should think, but nevertheless, there we are. A couple of very small ridges there, but it does cut very clean. But you can do the same thing with a spindle gouge as well. So
actually, Mike, in reality, you can't.
Why?
No, you can't. But what I'm saying is, you can get nearly all the way there in truth.
Yeah. What you don't get with a spindle gouge is that crispness between the pommel and the
Tenon.
Yeah,
tenon.
I agree. But what I'm saying is, you can go so far.
Yeah.
The spindle gouge will do it, but this, if you like, bolsters the comment that we've all made, that it's the right tool for the job, and the spindle gouge is not the right tool for the job for doing pommels. But having said that, you can do 95% of the pommel, but you can't get that crisp meeting. It's like if you're using a skew chisel on a finial or whatever, when you want to get that crisp meeting of minds, if you like, it is the best tool for the job, because you can creep up on that meeting point, and as soon as that little tiny shaving flies off, you've got a really crisp meeting.
Yeah.
And then you can always mess it up with sanding if you want to. But yeah, you see, I have never turned a stair spindle. I've never turned a banister. Nothing.
Me neither.
No. So these sort of things, they are great skill builders with that tool, if you like. I mean, I've turned plenty of square stuff with a skew in that shape, for a pommel. But I haven't done one for ages. I didn't even do it when I was practicing this week. But anyway, what I'm saying is, if you, the skew tool is a very, very versatile tool. There's no need to be afraid of it under any circumstances, because it'll do no more damage if you treat it with the respect it deserves, like all tools do. Keep it sharp and try and understand where you went wrong. One of the best things to do, if you can't get to have one-to-one lessons, is stick your phone on a tripod or somewhere, do your turning. When you get a catch, press the stop button, go back, play it back, and you most probably be able to see where you've gone wrong. Because you'll say, oh God, I did that, I did this. Because that's why sometimes if you spin the wood very slowly and do the cuts, you have to traverse very slowly. But you can see what's happening, But practice is the way forward. Are there any questions about anything else, may I ask? Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed it to a point and you've got something out of it. You guys and girls, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, Mark has said that we don't use a spindle gauge for a pommel because it's not as crisp and we can't sand it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
With the skew, you don't need to sand.
That's it.
Exactly.
It's just that crispness of that, especially of that junction. Get that junction right with a skew. You can't get it right with anything else.
No. It's like I was saying with a finial or anything, any detail you're doing, once that last shaving flies off, as long as you're not going too quick and you create a groove, as Mark will say, as soon as you reach that other surface, it'll fly off and you've got your perfect joint of the two.
Being totally honest, I mean, a newel post is just a finial on a big scale.
So, that's exactly what it is,
if you want to practice with a skew, I mean, I wouldn't say finials are a good practice. I mean, I like finials. They're fun to do. There's got a few up there which I like playing with. But sometimes you get overcaught in the detail of a finial. Do it on a bigger scale.
No, I agree.
What Miss T calls a finiob. Do a chunky finial.
Yeah.
And you've got the same cuts. You've got the same practice.
Yeah, cool.
You've got something which you can understand why that cut works and that one doesn't. And it's great practice for anything.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if you then scale that up, you've got a banister, you've got a newel post, you've got a table leg.
Stools.
It's just the same thing in different scale.
Yeah, exactly. Any practice is good practice, but as Pete says, with a finial, people tend to get carried away with the length of the finial. That's not the key factors in my opinion of a finial is a good base in relation to the finial, and that onion, the transition of that onion looks easy, but it's not. And you have to get the proportions right. Otherwise, it's too big at the bottom. It looks bulbous at the bottom, looks like an onion. They call it an onion. It's not really an onion because it's got to have really nice transition points. And that's the thing to practice on, not the long bit. The long bit's quite easy. Once you've got your bit of detail on the end, you can work your way down the stem as long as you want. But once you get to that onion, that's what will catch people's eye if that is correct. And if it's not, it'll also catch their eye. So as Pete says, you don't need to practice on long ones. Get the onion right first on a small. I tell you what, there's one here. I'll give you an idea. This is all practice stuff. And this is coloured as well. See that sort of size there.
Well, colouring.
No. But what I'm saying is that's the bit you've got to work on, and then the rest of it just comes up there, doesn't it? So.
Yeah.
But practice, it's enjoyable. The thing is, though, Pete, with finials, they're easy to mess up, if you like, and it's only a little bit of wood, pen blank.
A bit of wood, you
chuck it away. Exactly. You're not looking for finish. You're just looking to get the
getting shaving tool control. It's all about tool control.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a hell of a lot. I mean, like thousands of light pulls. Because that's what I bought my lathe with light pulls. I did thousands of them. And I did a video not long ago where I did an hour of just filming of cutting the blanks and making the light pulls. I did 30 from bandsaw to finish in an hour. But that's great because you're just practicing and repeating cuts, practicing.
Yeah. I've just noticed something Ben said here. You can get a very crisp point if you end the cut with the spindle gouge all the way closed. Quite agree with you, Ben. I will demonstrate now. I will demonstrate now.
Almost
with, yeah, it'll never be as good, I don't think. It'll go the right. Yeah, it'll do.
Yeah. Do you want to go full screen so we can see what you're doing?
So I can see what I'm doing. This is Ben.
So we can see when you get it wrong. I mean, when
okay, you've made your point. Actually, what we'll have to do is just bring this down a bit. Just bring this down a bit.
Gazza's just said the devil can sit on the edge of a dull tool.
It's true.
It's very true, Gazza.
What was that? I missed that.
Gazza
devil can sit on the edge of a dull tool.
Oh yeah, these are becoming a bit dull now. So if you roll over, pick up the cut here.
Here, Hoven.
Now you see what I'm doing is the flute is becoming more and more and more closed. And if I get
it horizontal as you touch.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be there, really. You want to be there.
All the way closed.
You can get it, but the problem you have is
get a little line in the bottom there.
Yeah, you're going to get a line, and you got it. Even if I was using my 30-degree detail gouge, gives me a little bit more chance of getting there. That's nearly there, but again, even with that, you are restricted. You can get to there, because don't forget this is a bit lower than it should be. There, your wings are gonna just fluff the tenon. So I know where you're coming from, Ben, and I don't disagree with you in total, but I still maintain that you will get a better final finish, if you like, using the skew, because you can get right to the 90 degrees when that skew isn't cutting anymore, but you've got to be careful to take it away from the wood, otherwise you're going to cause a little groove. So it's, but yeah. Well, I hope everybody's enjoyed it. If there are no more questions, I'm sure the lads have been watching
no comments. You're up to date with questions, mate.
That's great.
Yeah,
well, in that case,
a few comments about how useful that was. So thanks for that, Mike.
No, thank you for coming, and thanks to my earworms and indeed Mark and everybody else that contributed as well. That was the whole idea of tonight's live, was hopefully to impart a little bit of information that you can go away and have a practice on. And I'm dead serious about this. I don't care who hears me say it. If you have any questions you want to ask, you only have to message me on Facebook, private message, and I'll get back to you. And if I can't answer it, I will speak to somebody to give you an answer. And I do a lot of answering that way as well. Just send me a private message and I shall get back to you. Okay, guys. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming. I've really enjoyed it. I'm not sure when the next one will be, but I'll keep you posted. Thanks to my earworms, Pete and Brian. Shame Mark couldn't be with us, but these things happen. Until the next time, enjoy your turning, and thanks very much again for turning up.
Good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.